computer.
खाली दिसतं, हां, राईट.
ठीक आहे, ऍडमिट ऑल
या
करताय तुम्ही?
मी करतो. या
Okay, I think everybody has joined. So I would like to welcome everybody for this panel discussion titled Some Bridging with Nilesh Oak. We have two eminent panelists for this discussion today. First panelist is Dr. Varsha Sarda. She is the founder of Vagyajna Kulam. Vagyajna Kulam is a Pune-based Sanskrit language learning and research center. Dr. Varsha ji holds a PhD doctorate in Sanskrit with a special focus on Natyashastra. In her MPhil research, Varsha ji has focused, specialized in Paninian grammar as well. Varsha ji's teaching experience spans more than 25 years. And to her name, she has published an audio album titled Mod Samskritam. Mod Samskritam contains Sanskrit nursery rhymes that are constructed, that are written by Acharya Varsha ji herself. The second panelist we have is Nilesh Oak. Nilesh Oak is an author, researcher, and corporate consultant. He holds a bachelor's and master's degree in chemical engineering and an executive MBA. Nilesh ji has published 3 books. He writes extensively in ancient Indian history. His writing helps his audience become aware of deep antiquity of Indian civilization. It also helps the audience comprehend, present, or defend the grand narrative for India. Unlike most Indic researchers, he builds this narrative through scientific acumen and logical reasoning. So welcome all. Before I ask the first question, just for everybody's sake, everyone other than the panelists, please keep yourself muted. We'll hold the panel discussion for about 55 to 60 minutes. And after 55 minutes, I will remind everyone to type their questions. We will not be able to take any live one-on-one questions, so please type them in after about 55 minutes. So welcome all, Namo Namaha. I would like to open the discussion with my first question. So when we consider the field of research, global research, and let's not restrict ourselves to any particular field of research, what do you think is the need of current need in the field of research? And I would like to start with Varsha ji. Varsha ji?
Yes.
Did you get the question?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Om Shri Sadgurave Namaha. Namaste Nilesh ji. I'm glad to have this discussion with you today. And I consider myself lucky to have this opportunity. So this was a long run in Sanskrit field, and this I feel this question is very relevant when I am looking forward towards all the interdisciplinary researches, where the definite role of Sanskrit is defined. So I feel that today's need in the field of research is post-evaluation. It has happened many times as we see that first of all, some research is done, and then that is executed, and then it is found out that these are the bad consequences of this execution of particular research. And these consequences, to cope them up or nil them up, again another research is launched and another research is conducted. So this is going on in many of the fields. And most of times, a lot of time of researchers is given to the problem solving mode. Means most of times one type of research is executed and it is accepted without a post evaluation, and then the problems are occurred and problem solving mode is on and all the researchers are behind it, that. So I would like to listen to you about. So this is my first, if I would like to express that this is my pain surviving constantly about the research field.
Yeah. Namaskar, and thank you everyone for joining. And so the kind of research that I involve myself, and I don't mean the engineering side of it, but one thing led to another. Started with Bhagavad Gita, and it wasn't so much a research, but it was just because my mother asked me to recite Bhagavad Gita, so I did it, so that it was that. But growing up, I heard these two extremes, which I don't think I'm exception. Most of us would have heard the same thing, which is in the Indian context, it was said everything is there in our Shastras, in our Grantha. And then you hear the other extreme, which is to say there is nothing. There are these just stories, maybe something to entertain you. Maybe it's written in Sanskrit, but so what? So that was kind of the two extremes that I heard growing up. And I thought the truth has to be somewhere in the middle, not necessarily, but that's what I thought at that time. And so one thing led to another, and then I got into researching on the Mahabharata and then Ramayana, then many other texts, Rig Veda, and now into Ayurveda and so many other things. And my knowledge of Sanskrit is, you can say, preliminary or non-existent. Okay, the non-existent is the right word.
I won't agree.
But I started there, and then I changed that statement because I also realized that sometime I will approach someone thinking that this person is a Sanskrit expert, or they have done their education in Sanskrit. And so when I ask the question, I wouldn't get the answer, or they are more puzzled than even I am about that particular reference. And so I said, okay, maybe I'm not as bad as I think. But it is fair to say that I have no formal training in Sanskrit. Sometime during the middle school, 8th, 9th, 10th, one can have a 50% Sanskrit, 50% Hindi. The school that I went to, I would say very unfortunate that I had to only take Hindi. And what I mean is, it's not about the Hindi that is unfortunate, but I never developed mastery in Hindi and never had an official touch of Sanskrit. But coming back to that, answering that question, I found that as a great handicap, in the sense of anytime I go to do the research and I don't know Sanskrit in the sense of the grammar and the words. And so when I read it, I may get a directional idea, directional sense of what is being said. But sometimes that can send you on a totally wrong track, And so I think it's very important from my perspective to have a thorough, decent, good knowledge of Sanskrit, if depending on the subject, of course, but if any subject, if it involves tapping into the great reservoir of ancient Indian narratives. That is a generic word I use, right from the Rig Veda to any text. If it is in Sanskrit or even the local Indian languages, I call it ancient Indian narratives. So, Mandarji, that is my answer.
Okay, so in the first question, we focused on global research. What are the needs? Nilesh ji particularly spoke about his beginning in the research and Sanskrit cross section. So actually, this is a good segue for my second question. So when Nilesh ji, you or Acharya Varsha ji, when you're talking about particularly indigenous research, when I say indigenous, that is from an Indic point of view, whatever is conducted as a indigenous research in recent times, do you feel that it is conducted with a real Indic vision? And if yes, what are the difficulties that are faced by these researchers? So Varshaji, would you like to go first?
I would like to listen to Nilesh first.
Nilesh,
Okay.
okay.
Yes, yes.
All right.
It's very-
Okay, so yeah, I'll give you my 2 cents. The way I see it, and of course, there are always exceptions. So my response to the question of Mandarji is going to, I mean, it may appear harsh to some of the listeners, but as I said, that is the truth. That is my experience of, I would say, close to 30 years now. Okay. And slightly longer, even when I was undergrad. I mean, I started doing research then, but I was so raw at that time that I did not face those limitations because I was just in an absorb mode. I was reading something, the first time I'm reading something. So I wasn't even to the extent of what are the different opinions or stuff like that. But say, let's take last 30 years. And what I find, and I come from an engineering discipline. I mean, it just so happened that was my background. And so every time I try to tackle the issue, obviously the term we use, Varshaji, is a Purva Paksha. Like before you are going to do something, you're going to go look at what everyone else has done, potentially trying to solve the same problem. And it actually surprised me. It disappointed me. It frustrated me to no end. As to, like, you will see all the famous names, many decorated names, but actually when you look at what they have done in the name of research, it frankly frustrated me. Now, obviously, as I said, there are exceptions. For example, the specific area that I am predominantly focused on, like archaeoastronomy or astronomy in general, and using astronomy to date the ancient Indian text, and therefore specific individuals, specific historical events. And what I found is there are exceptions. So for example, I'll mention, everyone would know that name, Lokmanya Tilak. And so his books, I mean, phenomenal, to the extent, I mean, I don't know what the other questions Mandarji is going to ask, but if not, I will come back and talk about Tilak's work and how I use it right now. When somebody comes to me and says, Nileshji, now I also like to do research like you. I use books of Lokmanya Tilak as a test case for them to see, are they qualified, are they qualified to do this research, or are they just over enthusiastic? So there are exceptions. Shankar Balakrishna Dikshit, I consider him one of the greatest astronomers, not of India, but of the world. Frankly, I don't know who else can come closer to it. And I'm not talking of the modern theories, but in terms of just a sheer grasp of it. And if we get time, or if we get into question and answer, I'll talk about some of the things that he determined. Number of you would have heard the name V.B. Ketkar. Venkatesh Bapuji Ketkar, again, just phenomenal. I mean, he's an astronomer, even phenomenal astronomer in the sense of modern astronomy. My point is, there are exceptional names, Dr. P.V. Vartak and so on. Now, see, they all can be, including myself, we can be wrong about what we have figured it out, because that is the method of science. That is the method of our Natyashastra, right? I mean, neti, not this, and we are making progress. But just to summarize the answer, I'm extremely disappointed. One thing I'll tell you, Mandarji, what I did recently, when Smriti Irani ji became a HR minister some time ago, and she did a phenomenal job in my mind. Like, people just complain, and I don't know what they complain about. One of the simple things she did is she said, well, at least let's make these things accessible to people, what people have done. And so she took this digitization initiative of all the thesis, MPhil, PhD thesis, everything that is there. And somebody sent me the link. And immediately I went there. I said, let's see what's happening in research in India, and that's true for the world. But if you talk of the Indology departments in the Western world, basically they are next to useless, and they are agenda driven. Okay, they're completely agenda driven. I mean, I have to go and look for exception, period, okay, and I meet with all of them. Okay, it just that. But I thought, okay, I don't know much about India. So I downloaded, so my area being a Mahabharat, I just typed the keyword Mahabharat. Suddenly it gave me a list of hundreds of theses. I downloaded like a top meaning, the latest like a 20, 50, something like that. And I started reading those, and I thought those, I mean, exception none, randomly selected just by the recent date, all of them to be garbage. So that's my 2 cents.
I
Varshaji.
would have. Okay, okay. Yes, sir, this is um, actually to listen this. I'm worried about that. I'm from Sanskrit field. So actually, the thing is that the as you say that Indology, field of Indology is agenda driven. The thing is more severe in the field of Sanskrit, that people are not knowing themselves that they are agenda driven. Means if a person knows that I want this agenda and I want to go through, then itself it is okay. Means he is understanding that what he is doing. But many people in the field of Sanskrit and also in our history, the interdisciplinary subjects, there also people are not realizing that they are agenda driven by some guidance or by some traditions or by some sect of researchers. So this is happening for a long time, and that's why it happens, in the field of Sanskrit. Though the person, we think that the person knows very well this Sanskrit, but we understand that he is also dependent on translations, and he's also too much dependent on not many dictionaries, or being dependent on dictionaries is not, I don't consider bad, but uh, grasping the basic approach which is going on in the text, which is dependent on paribhasha. For that, we need Sanskrit word bank or knowledge, by which way the word is used in colloquial usages, and by which way it has become as paribhasha. It has used in the Shastra as paribhasha. If we understand that paribhasha, then it is realized that how it is used. So this type of gap is occurring over, means occurs over there, and that's why I agree with your frustration that it might happen that you are dependent on some resource and you're not getting that flavor. And this changed after spoken Sanskrit movement in 1984, and then after having command on language, the definitions of having command on language were changed. So I feel in the field of research, this command on language was not considered what we say, it was command on written language, or it was command on translations, or command on doing translations, or if you are capable of translating, then you have command on language. This was considered. So because of that, all the common trend was set, that it was not realized superficially that a person is with Sanskrit or without Sanskrit. So I agree with this fact.
Yeah, and before Mandarji, you go to the next question. I mean, I should, after my very stern response, I should requalify something I said. For example, when I said I was disappointed, Varshaji, that is because when I was looking at this thesis, I was, so this is just could be even my limitation or my specific focus. So every time I look at something, I'm saying there is a reason why this is done, why thesis is done. And many students or many individuals in India have admitted to me in the private conversations that many times they don't know why they are doing what they are doing. Sometimes it's their professor tells them what to do, which is fine. Actually, that happens here too, by the way. For example, my master's is in the polymer expertise, So now I wanted to do polymers. That's the one story, but I was just lucky. Many times I may come here to do something in polymers, and I might end up doing something in biochemical engineering by cutting the mouse and taking the cells and doing something. So that's possible. But at a minimum, me as a student, I need to ask my professor why I am cutting the mouse and exactly what's the purpose, what are we going to do with those cells and how it solves the problems of the world or what particular aspect we solve. So that's one comment. Quickly, second comment. Some of the criticism that I just said, it may not apply if the thesis or whatever is written is from some kind of analytical perspective of somebody's commentary of a commentary, or say take Kalidasa's certain writings, like say, whatever, Raghuvamsha, and somebody's making a commentary, then none of this, what I just said, will matter. However, if somebody is doing a thesis, I think that person should always push the envelope towards some growth of knowledge, like some other insight that he or she should find or found as a outcome, as a result of their, say, MPhil thesis, PhD thesis, whatever, masters, whatever they are doing. And so if you ask the question, they should be able to articulate, hey, this is what I did, or this is something new, or this is another twist on it. And that's where I frankly felt the frustration that these people, some of those individuals I talked to, they could not articulate even after some prompting as to what was that new thing or what was that creative thing that they achieved.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Yes.
So I think just to summarize first two questions that we discussed, so there is some type of indigenous research happening in the field of Indology. However, there is definitely the quality of research that is getting conducted is at a compromised level. It's not at par, what you would call modern day research. And what I hear from Dr. Varsha ji is that there is a lack of Bharatiya Drushti or Indic Drushti, and part of the reason could be that the researchers, the Indic researchers themselves are not conversant with the Sanskrit language. That could be one of the reasons. So my next question is, as I see that there is a gap between the researchers, and I don't want to divide them into two camps, Sanskrit scholars versus the researchers, but there is definitely a gap. And if we were to bridge that gap, what do you see are the potential solutions? What could we do about it? So, Varsha ji.
Actually, what frustration Nilesh ji has faced during his research tenure, it might be said that command on language should be defined very nicely. Means it should be definitely dependent on your capacity to tackle meanings through traditional grammar, which is Paninian grammar, where the reasoning is fixed. For example, in Natyashastra, Paninian grammar is referred. The Natyashastra text was ready in 400 BC. It was surviving in first century also. And we can understand that people were too much with that grammar, and all the references were understood by many people. So while studying the text, what is referred in the background is most important. So this became very difficult in last 200 or 150 years, because optional means this might be there, this might be there. Opinions, versatile opinions were published, and a lot many theses are there, and lot many papers are there to refer, and lot many books are there to refer, and no particular conclusion is given. And it happens most of times that you're also supposed to say that this might happen, and I'm not sure about. So this is the trend in the field of uh, this type of traditional research, means the interdisciplinary research. And if we see that what kind of research was there in ancient India, it was in particular, clear paribhasha or clear perception, where tikas were written and tikas were considered. So Indic knowledge system was in the background always for all the subjects altogether, and it was well defined to go further. So this is most important to revive today, to have some kind of conclusion about researches. Otherwise, making statements and might be statements is possible, but those are there always with many books, and always in a new generation, students are confused, and they will decide that what will I take as a true opinion. I don't know. And if I have some opinion, I should not state it very clearly. This is the trend actually. That's why in all the conferences, we see that people are not allowed to state whatever their conclusion is. It is, you're supposed to say might be. You're supposed to say it might be. Yes. And this is the trend. Because what? Because you are not supposed to hurt anyone else who has studied it in the field. Or you're not supposed to disagree with the person who has concluded something previously. But till this doesn't happen in the field of execution, in the field of science. They are executing, they are on the industry level, and they are launching many products immediately dependent on this research, is their research. And this is not said that it might be, it will happen. And whatever the problem will occur or consequences are there, those are faced. So this, this movement or this movement is not there in historical or this today's indigenous research, and that's why the conclusions are not fixed. So what do you feel? I would like to listen to you, Nilesh ji, that this is our observation, that this is happening today, because everyone is saying might be what is to be taken true and what is to be done.
Yeah.
So for textbooks also, if we provide some facts, those are acceptable or not acceptable, all will keep discussing for next 15 years.
Yeah.
And textbooks are as it is. So this is happening. So this becomes very, very slow as conclusions are not taken.
Okay, so Mandarji, what was your, I mean, just to, so that I respond to what Varshaji said, and what was the question? Like,
so the question was, I don't want to divide the researchers and Sanskrit scholars, but there seems to be a gap. And if we were to bridge the gap, one of the things that Acharya ji is saying, that people are afraid of reaching conclusion and there is no verification. So maybe verification of that research is one of the first steps towards bridging that gap. So
okay.
Yeah, that was the question. What do we do to bridge that gap?
Right. So that's a great question, and what Varshaji said is very insightful. I'll take even one step backwards. So first, I will clarify that what Mandarji you said is correct, that we shouldn't distinguish. So it's not like a language expertise versus research expertise. It's not like that. It's interdisciplinary, or I mean, I'm talking here right now about my research, but I'm also very good at cooking chole and cooking rajma, so it doesn't take away my skill set at different things, right? So yes, we are together. I mean, as an individual has to know these different facets to a different extent. For the Sanskrit, again, see, I'm not analyzing it. These are my views as an external person about the perception of people who are in a Sanskrit discipline, I would say, okay, and as it relates to research. I get specific help from people, and what Varshaji said is what I experience. For example, I mentioned it to her before this talk, that if I go to some expert in Sanskrit, okay, and I take that help all the time, what will typically happen is the answer doesn't come out immediate. Some people will just never respond. That is also true, okay? And by the way, Varshaji, some people will not respond. I wouldn't name names, but those who forget about not immediately responding, but those who will never respond, almost afterwards, after 10 years, I have realized that they almost have this attitude of holier than thou. Okay, just there are people who never responded to me. And what is interesting is, but 10 years after, they have come to me, and they in a public, like social media forums, they will say, well, yeah, I want Nilesh to respond to that. I mean, Why would Nilesh respond? There is something questions that, I mean, on a personal basis, I have asked. So this is just extremely very trivial aspect of it. But I always wondered why they could not respond. And the response can be in a different layer. Somebody can say, hey, you know what? I think just prima facie, I think this is the answer. Like if I'm asking for a translation or something, but I would like to know the context and that might help. Also, there are these couple of words that might have a different meaning. Let me just go check. I mean, that is the answer. It's not an answer, but I know that, okay, I have a hope, as opposed to just somebody will just smile at me or smirk at me, and that's the end of it. And I'm left on my own. So that's one thing. But if we are asking the question, what we need to do different, two areas, I think. One, I think we need to talk about. One area is bringing the logical and scientific aspect of how we do research to, it doesn't matter what we do. So when I say scientific, it's not only about the chemistry and physics and in the lab, but suppose if we are do comparison, of say, what are the differences as the story of a Rama that comes into say Raghuvamsha versus Valmiki Ramayana, or what are the differences, or to what extent the story changes or what aspect from say Valmiki Ramayana to Tulsi Ramayana. I mean, it can be anything. And still this logical scientific approach applies. Now, as soon as we say science, people think it comes from the West. No, it does not. I mean, that also how much we have to do the work here. If you look at all our Darshan Shastra, it is there, right? So, I mean, we need to tell people that the Darshan Shastra is where, I mean, Nyaya Darshana, for example, is full of science. See, my journey to Darshan Shastra, especially Nyaya Shastra, for example, was backward. Meaning I was like totally on a high octane of the Western science, which is great. It has made a lot of progress. From there backwards, I want to know more. And I came backwards to Nyaya Darshana. So that's one aspect that we need to make this aware. The second one, and this is my speculation, but I have a reason to speculate, and Varshaji and Mandarji, you can tell me otherwise. Just a purely Sanskrit studies, because I have nothing to do with the Sanskrit directly, so to say, but I get these emails where people want to, either the parents or the individuals, they want to come here and study in Indology. Usually they are called Department of South Asian Studies and stuff like that. Or parents want to send and they say, so now Nilesh, you are working in this area and my daughter wants to go, my son wants to go, or the individual says, I want to go. Which university do you suggest? And so on. And I'm saying, don't come. I mean, don't come to, I mean, unless you want to get brainwashed and, and I understand the temptation for, say, scholarship and good experience. Absolutely. I mean, that's totally justifiable. But I said, don't come. And this is my second point. The reason I say this, I said it initially that it's all agenda driven. And that's where possibly what Varshaji was saying actually came into being, which is to say here, what people were doing, the people who got into, say, think of a colonial times, going back to William Jones and afterwards, they created the Sanskrit chair at Oxford and whatnot. And their goal was to create the material that helps the British rule India. Okay, as far as the Indian knowledge and Indian science system is created. So they created agenda-based research. Okay, now that has come now. So actually we are learning from the Sanskrit guys. It has come to technical science now. The research that is done in the pharma and research that is done with the consumer products, it is done in that way. Like, what do you want to sell, or how much more money we can make and so on. So my point is, if India or the people in India in a Sanskrit field, it belongs to India, and nothing wrong in taking good things from outside. But if they start, or if they look at or continue to look at the Western Sanskrit departments as something like, wow, Harvard and Columbia and Oxford and Cambridge and Berkeley, okay, they are in fool's paradise. They are in fool's paradise. Here people are, I mean, somebody, without telling the name, I'll tell you, a well-known faculty, chaired professor, whatnot, like he will just say something like, say, Abhinav Gupta, okay, or like a Prashasti, and then our fools from engineering institutes who have come here, they will be saying, sir, but I am conducting some small Sanskrit workshop. Will you give me some suggestion? Well, the guy doesn't know any Sanskrit. He may be holding a Sanskrit chair here, but that doesn't mean anything. But just because he's an American guy and he is connected with a well-known famous university, we look at them as like a Gandharvas and Devas. That is the problem. And so their incompetence has transferred to possibly on the Indian side. These are my speculations from outside, you know.
Best observation, Nilesh. So practically this has happened. Yes, means I agree, totally agree. But it is, just like how consumers will propagate their, way. This has happened that they get status by this. So international status is provided, and chairs are there, and scholarships are there. So it goes on. This is the attention that how we will shift whole of this perception dependent on Indian knowledge system, where the people are very useful who are doing work for the sake of work. Though people are blaming them, they'll keep working for their text or their subject. Though people will appreciate them, they'll keep working for their text or their subject. So these type of people are traditional, who are studying traditional shastras. Those people are very, very useful because they are so authentic by their side. And I agree that you have got this experience that people are taking time to respond you. So there are two reasons. It might be the first reason that they are not knowing it, or they are supposed to search it out, because the versatile, what we say, a contrast fills in the field of Sanskrit itself are existing. So that's why they are supposed to refer them, and they are supposed to tell them. And second one is, people are worried about that by Indic knowledge system, the approach is totally different. And by consumers approach, whatever information is provided, for what is it used for, or what will be it, means what will be its consequence if I provide this information. So
True.
this I give you one example.
Yeah.
That my Vyakaran guru, he was Vaba Bhagwat, respected Vaba Bhagwat, and he was founder of TMV. And I used to study Vakyapadiyam from him, and I used to go in the morning every day. And so he had one experience that one foreign student, he was asking him some recordings of Vakyapadiyam, but he took 8 days to think on that what he will do by this my recordings. I don't know, and I'll have to find it out what he will do for that by this. Means though they were offering him a lot many things, he didn't agree, and he took time, a lot of time. So this, this not believing in other person, this has occurred because of lot many happenings in the field of Sanskrit, that lot of information is used for wrong purposes. And this has happened till now. So it might be the hazard amongst Sanskritists, that they don't provide lot of information. And third thing is that giving information, the base for the information is not existing. For example, if I tell you that if new student comes to me, and he's asking, for Nama Dhatu, we need Chaturthi. No, everywhere I have heard Namah Shivaya. Then I'm supposed to tell him that Namaha is another Avyayam, and you're supposed to say Namah Shivaya, and Devam Namami, there Dvitiya is needful. Now he won't believe in me, and he will ask me the reference. Now I'll give reference by Paninian Sutras. So if I give Namaswasti Swaha Swadalam Vasha Yogacha, then he will object on that also. He will say that from where it is, and he's not capable to understand that text also, which is Ashtadhyayi, and he will again object on that also, that do we get these examples everywhere? Then again, I'm giving you very, very simple example. If it is research oriented, then it becomes more complicated, and it happens too impossible to tell some facts to the person who is totally unknown, means not knowing it, not knowing the Indic knowledge system. So he keeps objecting and he keeps asking for references. So this goes on for 2-3 months constantly. So that's why we force them that at least you understand how the words are used in Sanskrit. Then you will understand what am I telling you. So at least you listen to Sanskrit. Then you will understand what am I telling you. So this gap survives everywhere in Nyayashastra, Mimamsa. Why? See, Dadna Juhoti Swarga Kamaha, at least to understand this sentence, person should know what about these people are talking. And Dadna is Tritiya Vibhakti. He at least should know that this is Tritiya Vibhakti. So this is very big gap, which is means Sanskrit scholars are suffering through. That askers are many and providers are feeling this gap, and it's impossible to state something. Yesterday itself, it happened that some person, he called me, I won't say the name, but he was saying that Nagas are 5 and Samudras are no, Nagas are 5 and Samudras are Samudras are 5 and Nagas are 7. So I had to convince him that how Nagas are 5 and Samudras are 7, and I had to give him references. And it happened that at the place of 75, he was counting for Katapayadi for 57. He was going wrong. So, and he was not agreeing at all. I had to give him many references how Nagas are 5. And it happened that this is so exhausting for Sanskrit person. So at least you should know what is Naga. You should know what is Samudra, or he was asking about Ishavaha. So Ishu, so Pancha Banaha. So why Ishu is called as means Bana. So to explain this was very, very exhausting. So he was not knowing Ishu, he was not knowing Naga, and he was just wanted numbers to solve his sum, and he was worried about that. And I forced him to learn Sanskrit little bit, at least for 2 months you learn, then I'll explain you everything. So this was my need, you know. So I feel that this is the solution, that at least some, if you want something from the field, then at least some basics are to be cleared by yours, means by that person's side. So this is a very big gap. Why Sanskritists are avoiding all the people that I won't give answer. Because it becomes, you are eating, means you are supposed to provide every information which is there, and it's not understandable, and you're supposed to teach him whole episode. So, so this is also a problem. So, I feel. Yes.
Okay.
इस
So
दैनिक उदाहरण का धारावाहिक में मैं बताना चाहता हूँ कि जैसे नमः के बारे में आपने कहा, जब ये पुराणों की सीरियल्स होती है, शंकर भगवान हो या गणपति हो या कोई, तो उसमें ये नमः का ओम नमः शिवाय ये ऐसे ठीक है।
Yes, on the TV.
तब टीवी में क्या दिखाया जाता है सीरियल में, ओम ब्रह्माय नमः ऐसे बोलते हैं। तो शिव का शिवाय, ब्रह्म का ब्रह्माय, तो ब्रह्मणे होता है वो। मैं जब सुनता था ये ब्रह्माय शब्द हुआ कैसे, तो इस तरह से वो छोटे छोटे हमारे दैनिक जीवन में भी वो गलतियां, ये समझने की एक स्तर चाहिए, वो मिसिंग है। वो गैप का परिणाम यहाँ तक दिखाई देता है मनोरंजन क्षेत्र में या किसी और क्षेत्र में आपको दिखने को मिलेगा वो उस तरह से। ये अभी मुझे याद आया नमः की वजह से, इसलिए मैंने जस्ट शेयर करना चाहा।
Ji, you have added on. Yes. So Nilesh ji, this I wanted to say that ignorance about Sanskrit is taken for granted. That being ignorant in Sanskrit is not considered very bad. So and people are working constantly.
Right. Well, I mean, to be fair to everyone in the Sanskrit field, I would say that you shouldn't feel as bad as you feel, because I don't think it's what you just described is not limited to Sanskrit. Meaning, and therefore I was going to ask, as you were narrating, if in your life, you have seen this difference, meaning not your personal life, but you, as you interact with the students or otherwise, say 10 years ago was somewhat different, and I wouldn't say better or something, but somewhat different than today, because I sense it even in a workplace. People come more, and you would imagine the smartphone would have made them smarter, but sometimes they have outsourced the smartness to the smartphone. That's what I feel, which is to say, workplace, they will come, and I said, well, so what have you done? So in pricing, for example, and the person who is working for me will say, you tell me what to do. I said, this is an area where it's not like, so I say, you're also working in this area for 10 years. So tell me what you have done. He or she will say, just forget it. Just tell me what to do. Then when I tell them, then just like you said, they will start asking, okay, what is this? What is this? What is this? I mean, almost. So it's not limited to just your field. So possibly something else is changing in the background for everyone. I like to call it postmodernism, but that's just my 2 cents
But
on it.
I would say at least it is limited to the work. Here it goes for research, and people are claiming their researches.
Yeah, agreed.
So this is most dangerous.
Yeah.
Yes.
So not to change the subject, and so I will not go into detail, but before, when I give my presentations on any subject, if I have a luxury, I usually talk about a triad of like a Shraddha, Samshaya, and Jidnyasa. I don't know if you, but Shraddha, from all 3 words from Bhagavad Gita, I'm saying, Samshaya is of a different kind. So Samshaya is of a mind versus buddhi. Shraddha can be sattvic or tamasic, and a Jidnyasa can be just idle curiosity or saprayojana, And so when that idle curiosity, tamasi shraddha, and just the samshaya of a mind comes together, we are sitting on a disaster, just waiting to happen. And that's what we see, like the example that you just gave, that's what I was thinking there. Yeah. So, I mean, I wrote it down. And so something else came to me is from, say, Patanjali, like where he says, Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, Samadhi, Pradnya, Purvaka, Iteresham. Many people don't know that they need Shraddha. They need to do some, put some efforts, need to do tapasya, need to have some background knowledge, memorize things. People don't see the importance of memorizing anymore. That, I mean, so we are now, just maybe going on the tangent. So I'll give it back to Mandarji.
No
Mandarji, you
problem.
can take us to next question.
Yes, yes. Yeah, the original question was, what do we do about this gap? So you, Nilesh, you gave us some insight about the way Western universities are going and how we look at it. So there is some work needed to be done. And Dr. Varsha ji gave us the Sanskrit point of view that people need to start learning the language. They need to start learning the original Indic knowledge system. So that will help bridge the gap. I would like to take this a little bit further. Um, so there are many ways of executing this, meaning that learning language. So particular question for Varsha ji is that out of these many methods that are available of learning language, what are these methods? And could you point out some efficient methods that would help researchers save on some time?
Yes. Thank you very much for asking this question. I'm very much eager in this field to work on and express myself anywhere and anyhow, because there are methods where you're capable of translating. You are capable of referring dictionaries, and you're capable of reading the text and getting meaning out of it by the help of dictionaries. So this was a traditional method. That was grammar translation method, and it was propagated by British, and all were used to adopt that. In my school days also it was there. Another method is there, that direct method, where by small sentences we start speaking, which is propagated by Sanskrit Bharati, and it is popular everywhere. So what Sanskrit Bharati has done is a fabulous job, and I myself, I was working for Sanskrit Bharati. I owe my gurus for that. And as we came for further, for 30 years, this went on, spoken Sanskrit movement. Speak Sanskrit movement. So it happened that people started thinking that if I express myself in Sanskrit, then I know Sanskrit. So this means new trend was set, and it is said that bhashyate sa bhasha, and people adopted Sanskrit by this way. So this was a direct method, and now after this 30 years, I have I'm standing for the method which is for constructivism, and there the spontaneous expression is given importance, and your akanksha is developed. As Nilesh ji said in his statement, that jidnyasa is different. It might be very general curiosity. So I would use word akanksha, where your need of knowing is too much, that you find out your solutions on your own by taking some efforts, and you are provided those opportunities to take the effort. So this akanksha paddhati is very traditional. It is there in all the shastras. We call it akanksha paddhati. But to provoke this akanksha, that atmosphere was there in ancient India, where it is today, it is not there. So that is created by some situations, and it happens naturally that people won't understand how they have started thinking in Sanskrit and how they are expressing so promptly and spontaneously. So this is made the point in this method, and I feel that lot many people should learn by this method, where they would very easily adopt Sanskrit and start expressing themselves, and they will understand that same thing is going on in Kadambari. They are also talking like this, and I can read that. Whatever I'm saying, I can read that. So this factually this is true, and this goes on with many texts which are ancient texts, and same language is identified over there, and this experience is fabulous, that I myself am using this language, and the same language I could get in the ancient text, which is giving me some shastra information. So this experience is very rich experience, and people should go for this. So this is the solution I feel. And people at least they decide to have this capacity, and then after they can refer the text, but this will not stop referring or asking Sanskrit scholars questions. It happens now that if I would have read the text, if I would have understood, I would have not asked many Sanskrit scholars. This doesn't happen about our traditions, our shastras, because every shastra is having different paribhasha, and you're supposed to go deep in various sequences of granthas to have command on that field. If for Nyayashastra, though you are understanding the text, though you get the meaning out of it, the meaning has some background, has some terrific what we say, analogy, and that those analogies are very very deep, and we are supposed to understand them. Otherwise we can lose, or we can lose ourselves. So this is happening, that if I know the language, then I'll tackle everything. So this might not happen in the field of Sanskrit, but at least if some scholar who has given his 30 years in the field in Nyaya Shastram or Mimamsa, what he's talking about and how he's talking about is understood very easily. So understood very easily, paribhasha is understood. So this happens. So this will take our discussions with Sanskrit scholars on very very
refined
rich
level.
Refined level, and on some advanced level they'll be capable to give you knowledge, and so this should happen, and I feel that we should stand to make it happen. Yes.
So Nilesh ji, sorry, it was kind of a one-sided question, but would you like to add?
No, actually it is a very relevant question for her. All I would add is we should, all of us should try to eliminate the compartmentalization, which is to say, so right now for the way I'm researching, me learning Sanskrit is going to help me understand the nuances. And I was talking with Varsha ji. So right now I may think I have got everything I needed to get out of that particular shlok, but that may not be true. I mean, I am thinking I got everything out of it, but if I know this, I will get the additional nuances. The other side, I mean, the other side meaning to avoid the compartmentalization. Say, again, we don't want to distinguish researchers versus Sanskritists because that's not the case. But the people who already, so I started with, say, engineering background, science, whatever you want to call it, or I started in the research myself and then learned Sanskrit backwards. Somebody who already knows Sanskrit, and if they want to get into this field, or even if they want to be the guide and coaches to the people who are doing research, then it also, I mean, it behooves that they also learn the ropes and methods of what we call scientific method or logical reasoning. You know, that could be from the Nyaya Darshana point of view, modern science, doesn't matter where, so that they also understand. I mean, so there is no lost in translation, and I don't mean just the Sanskrit translation, but when somebody asks the question, they know where you are going, because this is my other frustration. So I will ask the question, someone will say, okay, I'll get back to you in a week, and when that finally person gets back to me, it's not what I was looking for. So there is something lost in translation, and I don't mean just the Sanskrit to English or something, because they did not understand the point of view where I was coming or why I was coming. Many times they will give me something that is so superficial, it's not their fault, but that's something I had done. That's not the reason I came. I mean, I knew that. They will throw another commentary at me, and I said, well, no, I have gone through 6 commentaries and their translations. I was looking for your insights, you know, about those specific things.
Correct.
Okay.
So this is very means it's a best point you have raised, that what Sanskritists or Sanskrit scholars should do. Means they what they have means given their time for their field, and what will they say that I'll teach this to other person and then I'll die. Means whatever I have done. So they know how many years are needed to complete those sequences. But to expect that they should connect with modern science or modern informations which are needful to understand what is being asked. So to this, we don't have any system to provide this type of knowledge to Sanskrit scholars. So this system is to be created where this might happen that doctors are coming to learn Sanskrit. This might happen. But Sanskrit scholars are going to study medicine. This won't happen at any time. So this is the matter of educational system which we have, and how Sanskrit scholars will go towards all these fields. I don't know the solution.
Yeah, just quickly, I will add, Mandarji, before you go to the next one. See here, what I am referring to, Varshaji, is not necessarily someone becoming a doctor, full doctor, like a medical professional. And I know you didn't mean that. For example, I'll tell you, I'm just a humble plastic salesperson. Okay, I mean, that's what my first job was. The point is, right now, I mean, I started my research in astronomy from Mahabharata and Ramayana. But right now, then after that, I went into the hydrology, geology, because of the river Saraswati, all the changes of their path and the way they are describing all Ramayana, Mahabharata, and Rigveda. Then based on that, I went into afterwards into genetics, because looking at the migration and the whole nonsense of Aryan invasion and, you know, all that. So I went into archaeology, then Dwarka flooding. So I went to whole oceanography. Then why the migrations went outside from Saraswati region, I went into climatology. And frankly, I'll tell you, with my experience, if again one has a dedication, it doesn't take much, because we are not asking people to be expert that they do the original research, but ability to grasp the research done in another field. Okay, so and that's something it's not again pointing fingers at Sanskritists, so to say, but if they have it, my point is, if they know Sanskrit, they are sitting on a what you can say, a treasure house, right? I mean, they are sitting on the treasure house, but now, there is like a whole oil exploration to be done, like a Saudi Arabia. But the person says, no, 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 I don't want to learn about oil exploration. This says, no, hold on, you can learn this in 6 months, and now all you are doing is just pumping oil. But the person says, I want to do it. Almost it's like that, because what a powerful position, as I see it, somebody who is very conversant and flexible with Sanskrit, and how much of a knowledge they're sitting on. You just go to Bhandarkar Oriental and there are so many manuscripts. All you see is the dust. I mean, they have not been even opened and they have not been scanned. And who knows what is sitting in those manuscripts.
Yes, yes, this is true. And people always tell me that you're sitting on gold mine and what do you do? So this is true. And how to tackle it out? See, being open to all the streams of knowledge, that is one quality. And we are supposed to inculcate this quality to people who are opting for Sanskrit. I would add on that in modern age, whatever streams of knowledge are there, those and whatever streams of knowledge are surviving in ancient Indian texts, those are totally different. The Indic approach, Indic knowledge systems approach is totally sustainable. They won't propagate anything for consumption. They won't propagate anything for time being. They won't propagate, or they will leave their conclusion aside if it is not working well for all. So this is the approach, and in modern this scientific world, in all the streams, the consumers are there and they are dominant, and the researches are suppressed, which are not having so-called productive ability, or if they are not connected with the commercial things, then those researches are suppressed. So this problem also survives, that this bridging is very, very difficult to come out of that ancient Indian approach towards this commercial, international, as well established approach, where the consumers themselves are deciding which research is to be promoted. So this bridging is also, I feel, that a needful step towards this happening.
Yeah,
Sanskrit
we'll
is
definitely discuss this more maybe another time, because I have my, I have a good number of thoughts on that one, like I have good.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, but I don't want to give it today. Like, we have almost like excluded Mandarji, into
No.
He's saying what's happening to my questions, maybe, like if he has anything.
No. So we have spent about 60 minutes. I have one final questions, and then we'll take audience questions. So my last question is, so we agree that language learning by the researchers is also necessary. Acharya Varsha ji mentioned efficient methods that are available. Mass Sanskrit learning will also help propagate the Indic knowledge system. My last question, maybe Nilesh, you can help here, is that there are many researchers like you who are referring to the ancient texts, Sanskrit texts. So there is definitely opportunity for the interdisciplinary research. So both of you, would you like to, other than dating Mahabharata that you have already concluded, are there any more examples of interdisciplinary research which could help bridge this gap as well?
Okay. Do you want me to start?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's Mandarji, I'll come back to you and say, jokingly, of course, how much time do you have? It's like I can put the dating completely aside, and I wanted to say something on the dating too, but I'll come back to that maybe in a question and answer or the next time. When Varshaji mentioned like the Natyashastra or Panini, and in the context 400 BCE, and then I was going to say, not her, but how did somebody arrive at 400 BCE, and then if you go drill it down, you will find there is no foundation for it whatsoever. I'm willing to tell. And I even don't know exactly what Varshaji referred to 400 BC, whether to Natyashastra or a Panini, or it doesn't matter. I can, based on my research, I tell you there is no basis whatsoever, but it is a date that is given to us by someone at Harvard, possibly 50 years ago. Okay, the person said, what should I do today while sipping on a glass of wine? And just say 400 sounds good. You know, there is a 30-second video of Sheldon Pollock from Columbia University. Okay, where, I mean, you're nodding head, so you might have seen it, where he says, well, I say the Ramayana happened Ramayana happened in the sense of the Ramayana was written. To them, it is just a story that is written. So that's the problem. That's where the problem begins. Okay. And it says in 150 BCE. And then in that 30-second clip, he says, and why do I say that? He takes a pause. And then he says, because I can.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. That's the level of arrogance and stupidity exists in the Western Indology studies. We should be aware of it. I mean, the young people who are studying right now, not because they just see the person in a tie and a three-piece suit. No, please, so that's one. But to answer your question, something away from the dating. But this is going back to 2008. I worked on, in Pune, guys, you would know something called, now the India also knows, Kailash Jivan. You know that, right? From the Assam, right? Something similar with my business partner from France, so we were working together. We created something similar, so you can immediately visualize as a Kailash Jivan, not exactly Kailash Jivan. We were traveling worldwide, and so global travelers, and a jet lag is an issue. So we came up with something based on the knowledge from aromatherapy that comes from France, Ayurveda from here. I'm like a self-taught in almost everything. So we put together, we created 36 different formulations. If you know the whole food chain, like if you have heard, it's like a whole food, very organic and blah, blah, blah here. We actually made a connection with them. We have sat in their stores and sold our product. Okay. And on this thing, we got 30, 40 people, volunteers in America to come and test it. And now I will tell you where the collaboration comes. Now what we wanted is, yes, we can sell it. The product is working. We have got the test done. We got the manufacturing kind of lined up. And now, just for authenticity, we wanted an aromatherapy expert and an Ayurveda expert. So aromatherapy expert from Switzerland we found, and he was willing to work with us, write white papers. And now it was my job, being an Indian, to find an Ayurveda expert. And that was such a tough thing. Finding an Ayurveda expert was not difficult. I mean, the people with the degrees, that was easy. I wouldn't go into names. I found few. But when it came to actually explaining this concept, what we are doing, what we have done, what testing we have done, how it has worked, we showed the results with the sleep patterns. Like, we had invested in the machines. And now we wanted them to write a white paper with us, as an expert. Okay. So first thing, oh yeah, but how I have to take permission, and that just went on. I said, forget it. I will write the white paper. You just say mama, like, Satyanarayan Puja, something like this. Now they were scared of that too. Says, hey, but I mean, are you sure that everything is done in a proper way? And so again, I'm bringing this has nothing to do with the Sanskrit Varshaji, for example. This has to do with a certain level of confidence, certain level of integrity, and just you move on. Guess what? We gave up that project, and then we got busy with something else. And the reason we gave up eventually, because at least the way America works is that, the next question they will ask, and we were getting those questions when we were standing in the store and selling this product. Oh, so you are that Ayurveda expert? And honestly, with the integrity, I couldn't say that I'm Ayurveda expert, although we built it. So it would be so nice. We have some professor, PhD, whatever the right designations, and, there. But the people were not willing to put their name to it, and we were not asking anything for free. Okay, so this is one example. Right now, I'll tell you just quickly another one. I gave again dating related project I did on a Sushruta. Right now, Sushruta, everyone, if you go to Google and whatnot, you will hear 600 BCE. Okay, and that is a atrociously nonsensical, unscientific, illogical date. Okay, that comes from Hunley, 1907. Okay, totally nonsensical, but it is there everywhere. So I have shown that Sushruta is minimum of 8,000 years old. Now, some of you might fall from your chairs when I say that, okay? But minimum of 8,000 years old. My point is, when I did this research, suddenly to my pleasant surprise, I am now suddenly know 50 Ayurveda Acharyas, which I wanted to know 10 years ago. And they almost think like I'm an Ayurveda expert. Now go figure the humor of it. You know, the Ayurveda folks think I'm an Ayurveda expert. The only thing I did is a dating of a Sushruta. And I don't know anything of Ayurveda. So I'm saying there is a huge scope for any area. You just pick an area and there is a scope.
There is a scope for it. Okay.
Yeah, this is a very good point we are supposed to consider. Actually, what is that? Sanskrit coming out of academics. That is, in academics, the education might not be the education. So this you have experienced practically, and this is there. And I feel this is the effort I feel that it's to be taken.
Okay. I think I am out of questions. There are few questions popping on my screen from the audience. I know one person had raised the hand. The format we want to use is you type your question, and if the questions are exhausted, we might take some live, but we don't want to take live questions directly from the audience. Type your questions. So first question comes from Sainath. The question is directed at Nilesh. When if a new person wants to do a research, where should the maximum time of his or her should be allocated? Understanding Sanskrit shloka, contemplating on it, looking at a previous data, learning Shastric knowledge, or am I missing something? So where should
Yeah. I mean, the question is a bit of a loaded, but what I would say is you don't begin with a specific field, or you don't begin with a Sanskrit. You begin, I mean, why do you want to research? You want to research because you feel passionate about something. There is a state of knowledge, and you say, hey, this is what people claim, this is what we know, but I don't see the connecting thing between the two. There is something missing. So just a simple answer that Professor Wheeler from Princeton gave long time ago. If you want to have a fulfilling life, he said, find the toughest problem in any discipline of life. Find the toughest problem, toughest unsolved problem, and go solve it. This is where it begins. It doesn't begin with Sanskrit. It doesn't begin with a specific field of science or engineering, nothing. It can be anywhere. It can be in agriculture. It can be in the climate. It can be in your household. It can be about how to kill the bugs or how to make sure that the bugs are not killed. It can be anything. And once you decide, then of course the Purva Paksha, which is to say what others have done before you just running and trying to solve the problem, which might have been solved before. And in the process, whatever you need to learn, you learn it. I mean, that's how you do. There is no ifs and buts around that.
Acharya ji, you want to add something?
Yes, I would appreciate Sainath's question, and I appreciate him also, that he's too open to go for anything for his research. So I feel that this is the solution, that tackle out, it comes across to whatever comes across you just sort it out and go further. Wherever you are some hazards to waste your time, you're supposed to identify that you're wasting time here. Actually, sometimes if you are positively doing something, then you won't waste time. But if you are with half information, if you are trying to solve something, then you might waste time. So this may happen, and I've seen many researchers wasting their time in small span. They can understand lot many things, but they are not paying attention over there, and that's why they are wasting their time. So this might happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question comes from Kiranji. He writes that it is generally agreed that the Sanskrit language, this is a very interesting question. It is generally agreed that the Sanskrit language from semantic perspective, Paninian grammar, is the most suitable language or framework for computer and AI, computational linguistics. So why is there no adequate push for Sanskrit for Sanskrit by the international community, which could give impetus to learn Sanskrit language in India. So he's talking about using Sanskrit as a programming language or for computers and AI, for computational linguistics. And why is there lack of push for Sanskrit from international? So it's a twofold question. Anybody?
Yes, Nilesh, please.
Okay. So I would say this is our problem. For example, I mean, it's a perfect to ask that question. And I'm not saying whoever the individual asks, suddenly he or she has so many resources that they can do something about it. But we ask that question, we are saying why there is no push. And my point is, I mean, who is that out there? I mean, we know the wonderful story of Upanishad, like 10 individuals were traveling through the forest. And every time they will stop and take a count, so that making sure no tiger did not attack one of them. And so every time they count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and they would always say, what happened to the 10th guy? You may know the story. And then the next place they go and they count 10 again. And what happens, count to 9, and they say, oh, where is the 10th guy? And every time they were forgetting themselves to count. I mean, that is the story comes in Upanishad. My point is, when we say, and this is not to point at the person who asked the question, and thank you for asking the very important question. When we ask why it is not being pushed, when we turn that into a passive voice, that is our problem. Okay, always ask the question, what am I going to do about it? Okay, and you say, come on, but I'm just a simple guy. Well, as a simple guy, you can do it. Do you know Sanskrit? Do you know computer? Okay, what can you do as a very simple thing? Like, can you do auto translation using Sanskrit? Or try to figure out, I heard that. I mean, in the question, in the statement was there that Sanskrit seems to be a suitable language, Paninian grammar, and just say, okay, is there a substance to this argument? Like, can I find one example why Sanskrit is more suitable as this computational language than other languages? Can I come up with this? And if I just find that point, can I go around wherever that person is, or these days through social media, and talk about it? Hey, here is why Sanskrit is the better suitable language for competition. I mean, somebody has to start there. And I'm telling you, if that is done, there is a pitcher and catcher we talk about in a baseball language here. If somebody is doing this, there is somebody who's listening to it. Like how, for example, say Varsha ji and Mandar ji, we connected. We honestly don't know how we got connected, but somewhere we saw each other, read something, and so on. So after we got connected, I went and saw Varsha ji's presentation at Pondicherry, or that festival where she's singing with the children and all of that, right? So now I didn't stop there. So now that I know you guys, I want to see what you guys do. I just went there, typed the name and YouTube. Now I know more about Varsha ji than she knows about herself. I mean, that I'm just jokingly saying that, by the way, but that is
your jokes.
Right. But that is the power that we have with the social media. So again, not like hitting at the person who asked. Thank you for asking the great question. We have to literally hold the bull by the horns. If we have a question, see, these are all opportunities. The very fact somebody thought Sanskrit can be a suitable language, or is thought to be a suitable language, why are we not pulling? If I had a time, I would go and vent about what happens in Delhi. I would not do that today. Right now, my team is in Delhi last 1 week, meeting with different peoples, and various ministries and whatnot. And people so those people look at us and says, guys, we have a hope that you will do something. My God, I mean, these people are sitting in the power center there, and they are looking at us, just four individuals. That's sometimes frustrating to us, but we say, okay, maybe we are the ones, we are the ones who have to do it. So if you do it, I think there are pitchers and catchers. If you show there is a spark, there will be people to accept it. There will be people to give a funding, but the hard road is ahead, and you should be very excited about it, if you want to do it.
Excellent point. Acharya ji, do you want to add?
Yes, as this point is raised, I would like to make it clear that, this is definitely clean and clear that how Sanskrit is good for computing and for coding and all. But the examples are to be executed, and the consumers are to be created who will use it. So this is very big political issue, and we have put some steps towards through Vagyajna Kulam. And I would like to say that in early future, we are looking towards Shardula AI, when government initiated startup who will put some steps with all the researchers in the field of computers, and definitely the consumers will come forward to take that product, and it might happen that this is in the cycle is a problem today. Cycle is not there, so consumers are not there. This is very big politics over there, you might say. So this cycle will be generated, the wheel will be pushed further, and then it might work. So
Okay, yeah.
this
So
is there.
yeah, so to answer that question, yes, we need to grab it by the horns, as Nileshji said. And yes, there is an active effort, Kiranji, from Vagyajna Kulam. There is a collaboration ongoing. Once it is formalized, we'll come out with the announcement. It is with Shardula, so the name is out. So the next question comes from Vishnu. We have time for maybe we have 2 or 3 more questions. Sanskrit is the root of Pali, Prakrit, Marathi, Telugu, and other languages. But in southern parts of the country, radical groups are attempting to make their language refined in front of Sanskrit. How to tackle such narratives? Education, I guess. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but for Varshaji, do you want to go first?
I would like to listen it again. Will you frame
Yeah,
it
yeah,
again, please?
yeah. So Sanskrit is the root. So the statement says that it is the root of all the Indian languages, including the southern languages. But in the southern part of the country, there are radical groups attempting to make their language to be refined from Sanskrit, meaning they want to portray their language as more refined than the Sanskrit, I guess. How to tackle that narrative that their language is, although apart from Tamil, I guess we know that most of the Indian languages are originated from Sanskrit.
Yes. So I would like to make it clear that there are no contradictions at all. Sanskrit doesn't contradict with any which language, and Tamil is very rich language, and it has its own, own nature of building words or using words. So Tamil is having less alphabets, and it's dependent on some different sounds which are half pronounced. So this is the speciality of Tamil, and Tamil has become very rich because of this aspect. And Sanskrit respects Tamil, and we get many Sanskrit words in Tamil. So this contradiction actually practically doesn't exist. This propaganda is political, and we can understand that how Sanskrit and Tamil went parallel. Tamil language was more older than it is said than Sanskrit. Current research, but if we go on, we can understand that languages were surviving at a time. There was no time where only Sanskrit was surviving, only Tamil was surviving. No, it was not there. More than 200 languages were operating actively at a time. This is ancient Indian, ethos. Means this is our speciality, that we were having versatile languages, and those languages were dependent on each other. And Sanskrit language is Sanskritam, so which was giving some system, very fixed system, each and every language. So it doesn't it doesn't say that there is some kind of contradictions, and those contradictions are, if there are there, those are created, and those are very small. So they might vanish with these Tamil and Sanskrit learnings and propagation of Indian languages.
Yeah, I'll just add now. What happens is, if you are sitting in India, you have to answer this question slightly different than say me sitting here. And I'll tell you for a reason, because there, so yes, those languages, I mean, every language is different in some fashion. It is also true that the Tamil is relatively distinctly different, relatively speaking, within the Indian genre. Having said that, I will also say, if you think of the cultural similarities or the loan words in the different languages, both ways, that is happening. I mean, that has happened for a long time. And this whole Tamil being a very separate, unique, and some in a very special way, something very special, like, for example, this is essentially the brainwashing that has happened. I mean, I know the whole history, I won't go there, over last 200 years. Okay. And uh, I have hundreds of Tamilian friends. I'm working with them. I have 2 talks today, and they are with the Tamil groups, for example. But now what happened is, many of them, not all of them, many of them have totally bought into that propaganda. That is also one problem. Okay, totally bought into it. But what to speak of just Tamil? If I tell you that the English comes from Sanskrit, people will laugh at me and scoff at me. Okay. But actually, my friend Jeffrey Armstrong, and a number of you can check it online, somebody who is studying, who is very fluent in English, multiple languages, also Sanskrit, studying for 50 years. He's 75 years old, studying for 50 years. You can tell him English word, and we do this once in a month or so for 3 hours. He will ask me English word, and he says which Sanskrit word it comes from, and he will just make a connection. Those of you who might be listening, so I'm just going away from Tamil. See, oh, how are we going to solve the problem? Well, I don't think that's even a subject today. And Varsha and myself we are not going to solve the Tamil problem. Okay, that's much bigger. But people are creating their own problem. Again, one thing I will suggest is, we are talking language, we're talking research, but even when asking question, and any question is open, but it's also important to relate or focus on a certain area that is relevant to what we are discussing. We shouldn't, that possibly I see as an Indian problem, we shouldn't always try to boil the ocean, no matter what. For example, I saw the question, and it's a very humorous and nice question, like, what about my name? Like oak, that day, I saw in the list there, that's like oak tree, they know. And my answer is, you know what, that oak is the same as the Chitpavan Kokanasta Brahmin, same as Madhuri Dixit, guys. Okay, same as Madhuri Dixit. And we were in the same as, of course, Mandar Gokhaleji there. And we were and Madhuri and myself were in the same college. She was just ahead of me, okay. I continued to study. She continued to not study, but go into the acting, No, I mean, these questions, sometimes it's okay to ask, and it's a fun and it's a humor, and don't think I'm a serious person. But our challenges are so huge, also the opportunities, therefore, that I think we also need to develop this finesse in what questions we ask, So, so what? Just move on, it, by the way, it comes from Andhra Pradesh. It's like AWK, old AWK, from the Jwalapuram area, where we get this. Sorry. So I would say Tamil is not an issue, but even most of the language, all the languages of Europe, okay, even the Slavic languages have a Sanskrit component. And less so, sometimes the Germanic slightly less so, then Latin has a lot more. I speak few languages. I mean, I speak Spanish. I tend to remember words in Spanish by going back to either Marathi or Sanskrit. And that's how I remember the word.
Possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nilesh ji, for raising this. Yes, very nice. Thank you very much. I appreciate you for this. Thank you very much.
So just to keep a tab on time, we have crossed about 90 minutes. There is one.
Yeah, let's take one last question.
One last question. Okay. So Diksha ji is asking, I actually wasn't sure how, okay. If cultural gap is bridged, won't it be easier to bridge the perspective, or at least build an understanding from where the person is coming from? That is a subtle way. If we start to see it like a language beyond its religion, research-oriented background, improve the entertainment works in Sanskrit and thereby build the comfort level. Then the gap between traditional Sanskrit community and people joining post-Western education. Make sense?
No, it doesn't make sense to me. I'll just take that as a point to say, see, when we ask a question, I mean, again, these guys may be part of your group or something, that's fine. But I would say, usually sometimes I say the question begins with what, where, how, why, etc. And usually it's a sentence. Like if you give us such of a huge background and again try to, I mean, I listened to you what Mandarji you read, Boil the Ocean. I mean, it's very hard for us to give a very clear answer.
I
Okay.
would say that making Sanskrit easy cannot cancel out its background. We don't make Sanskrit easy by cancelling out its background, as it is said over there in the question. So
Yeah, I will just add, Varshaji, to something that also answers the question that was asked before, Sanskrit as a good language for computation and artificial intelligence and something. In fact, this is very important that we hold the bull by the horns on this one, because in America or in the Western world, you can say, people are already making use of Sanskrit. They are already working on it to use it into the AI and the automatic translations and so on. The challenge is, if we leave it to them, they are going to do it in a very reductionist fashion. So something that they don't understand, something that they cannot even say, like a no or a hello, like a Tamil and Marathi kind of thing, right? That Samul Hamasya Pam Sure, like it was there in Rigveda, but it has gone out in Hindi, for the hello is gone, right? Something that they don't understand, something that they cannot do anything, they are going to remove it. That is their style. So if we don't want to lose the originality for which actually Sanskrit is so precious, then we have to take the lead. We cannot wait for them to do it, but that's how it appears that we are. And even with the limited resources, we can do a lot. And once we establish our credibility, I'll tell you, we don't have to even depend on the governments. Like if there is an application, it may be commercial, it may be non-commercial, but if people see the value of it, the money comes, the support comes, the money comes.
yes.
Excellent. Thank you. There is one last question. I think there is no. So is Sanskrit a language of science? Is Sanskrit a language of science?
Actually, in one sentence, it's itself is a scientific language. So it's
In the sense of it's a synthetic language, you mean, Varshaji? Like it's a kruta, like Sanskrita in that sense, like it is thoughtfully constructed?
No, it is, see, our whole Srishti itself is very thoughtful. So this, Sanskrit is vibrational language, which is directly connected to Srishti. So I would say it Ishvara Tattva, and that's why it's very, very, this is very systematic, and it is not created language. It's inbuilt creation of Srishti.
Right.
So
And
that's
so
why
I
it is
just
too scientific.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, I will add to it, which is to say, just from limited scientific breakthroughs that we know, like, for example, human beings can speak and enunciate and pronounce multiple things that say like monkeys or apes cannot do it. And scientists think, we don't know for sure whether that's true or not, it is attributed to certain portions of a gene called FOXP2. I don't know if you have heard that. That's how we can vocalize it. And to Varshaji's point, therefore, even if we just take an evolutionary model, like that's how finally we learned the language. Literally, we were learning the language from what we are seeing in the nature, in the Srishti, which is to say, the wind is blowing and wind is making a certain sound, like the way we feel it's making a sound. That was used to create a word for the wind, so to say. And that was same thing for the fire and same thing for the this. So in that sense, it's very natural evolutionary language of that kind, because the original, I mean, Sanskrit was formed when for a humanity, the language was being conceived. That is a good way to say it.
Yes.
Okay. There are no more questions. So I would like to thank everybody who has attended in the audience. I would like to thank Nilesh ji for your time. And of course, Dr. Varsha ji, thank you for your time as well. So I would like to conclude this talk today, and I hope to have more interactions with you, Nilesh ji, in the future. Thank you very much. Thanks everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Sarvebhya namaha.
Sarvebhya namo namah.
Sarvebhya namaha.